All right, everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and get rolling here tonight. So I appreciate everybody joining here for tonight's conversation. I'm very excited to have Coach Billy Whaley on here from Norwich University.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate you taking some time. We're going to have a great conversation tonight. So everybody, the chat box is open. The Q&A is open. We're going to talk. We're going to go through some conversation here, but definitely a great opportunity to ask Coach some questions tonight. So you use that chat box, use that Q&A. So that will be open as well. Give us a follow on social media. Got the X and the Instagram handles up there, so give us a follow, and we share some good content there too. So, Coach, ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get rolling here. So, real quick, guys, a couple of agenda items. We're gonna have our conversation. We'll hang around for some questions too. So we'll get to a few of them maybe in real time, but we'll definitely get to some at the end as well. Real quick, guys, 30 seconds. Just we have some upcoming workshops here for June. I got a lot of good stuff coming up here, so want you to jump into these, screenshot this page. But remember, if you can't make them live, you get the recordings. We got some different topics here. Parents, upperclassmen, we're going to talk next week with you guys. So jump into that one. I've got one for small town recruiting later on this month. So if you come from a small town, we'll talk about that. And then underclassmen, we'll do some strength training topic there in the end of the month there. So again, if you guys can't make them live, sign up, get the recordings. We'll get those to you if you get a chance. All right. Let's get into this here, Coach. We just had about 15 more people jump in here since we got started, so we're going to have people trickling in. We got a good group in here tonight. But, first of all, Coach, I just wanted to give you an opportunity here to just kind of introduce yourself. Just give these guys a little bit of your baseball background. And I don't want you to, I'll ask a few questions, but I want you to give them your recruiting experience as well, because for a lot of families, I think that's really helpful to hear other people's recruiting experience as well. But just kind of tell everybody where you started and how you got to be the coach there at Norwich.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it's kind of funny you brought up the small town recruiting session
Yeah.
coming. So I'm a small town Vermont kid. I went to a small high school. I graduated. My senior class was only 39 kids. So
Nice,
I
nice.
can relate to a lot of that. But I ended up just being a local kid. I did my New England college visits as I went through high school. But, back when I was in high school, social media wasn't as big as it was. So it was a lot of camps. It was a lot of in-person visits, getting the boots on the ground, in your visits. But
Mm-hmm.
I ended up playing at Norwich for my 4-year career. I pitched there. I played 2 different summers, one in the NYCBL, Summer League in New York, and then I was actually fortunate enough to win a championship with the Vermont Mountaineers in
Mm-hmm.
the NECBL, which was a really great opportunity for me. And then I kind of just got into coaching right away. I had a job right out of college, and wanted to stay with baseball and didn't want to give it up. And I was an assistant for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Moved away, came back, an assistant for another 2 years, and then this past summer last year was my first season as a head coach. I was named as a head coach, and I just finished my first season.
Awesome, great stuff. So
Yeah,
great background.
yeah,
Came back to the alma mater,
yeah, I did.
leading the program there, which is awesome to
Yeah,
see. So a little bit more about just kind of the opportunities that you've seen there. Tell us a little bit about your program there at Norwich. Just kind of give a little bit of background. I know
yeah,
again there's a little bit of a uniqueness to Norwich
there
maybe
it
compared to
is.
some other colleges. So I'd love the folks in here tonight to know a little bit more about what Norwich is about.
Yeah, so I'll do more of the kind of general broad topic that
Mm-hmm.
Norwich is. So it is a Division III school located in central Vermont. We compete in the GNAC, which is the Greater Northeast Athletic Conference, traveling pretty much just around New England for our games, plus our spring trip to Florida. But more specifically about Norwich, so we are primarily a military college, which is kind of the point of uniqueness that we have.
Mm-hmm.
We are the home of ROTC. Our founder came from West Point and established Norwich, and so we are the home of ROTC. And so my roster is made up of about 50% of kids who are going to go on to serve after graduation, and about 50% who are what we call civilians or your traditional student that'll graduate college just like any other kid from any other university would.
Sure, sure, sure. Now, there's some uniqueness that comes to recruiting guys, at that type of institution, right? So, like finding guys that are kind of a fit, that are open to looking at that. I want you to go back to kind of your experience. What was it about Norwich that drew you there personally? Like, what was kind of the opportunity that you saw there as a student athlete?
Yeah, so it kind of was ingrained in me a little bit just being a local kid, but
Mm-hmm.
my sister, my father, my uncle, and my cousin all went to Norwich, so it
Oh,
was
wow,
a
nice.
big legacy thing. But funny enough, my cousin did the Corps of Cadets side, which is the
Mm-hmm.
military lifestyle, and he was on Navy contract, and I did the civilian, so the traditional side. His
Got it.
name is Brian Whaley. My name is Billy Whaley. We both played baseball. We had a little bit of fun with it, but honestly, it was the best opportunity for me to get a good education and continue my baseball career. Being a small town kid in Vermont, MLB was a great, point to think about. But
Hmm.
as you get a little bit older, the realisticness sets in, and I just wanted to keep playing. I wanted to
Yep.
compete. I wanted to get better, and I wanted to set myself up for post graduation and just have a really good opportunity to get a good education and a good experience in college.
Great stuff. I'm a former D3 guy myself too.
Yep.
So former D3 player, coach
Yep.
myself. So huge proponent of the Division 3
Yes.
opportunities. Now you mentioned your conference. Just
Yep.
to give some context here, who are some of the teams in the conference? Who are some of your guys you're chasing, or guys that you're up against? Some of your rivals? Who are some of the programs that you guys are kind of battling with year in and year out?
Yeah, so conference wise, all New England. So we're looking
Mm,
at schools like Rivier, Colby Sawyer,
mm,
Dean, LaSalle, St. Joe's, Maine, University of St. Joe's, Connecticut. We did have Johnson and Wales and Anna Maria, but they have just now left the conference after the spring. Albertus Magnus, and then
mm.
Mitchell, who joined about 2 years ago, who came in kind of as a powerhouse, and
Yeah.
they got horses up and down. So. Um, they're kind of the team to chase right now.
Mm,
Now with Johnson and Wales, who just won it this spring, just left, so they're kind of the top dog remaining at this time. But and then we have our interstate, so we play Middlebury, so
mm,
they're a NESCAC school, which is a great conference. We play Linden State twice, and then we try to get Plattsburgh in the best we can, but
mm.
with weather and playoffs and just timing of it all, doesn't always work to get Plattsburgh in. But yeah, so those are really kind of the teams we face. And then obviously non-conference stuff going on in Florida is a bunch of teams from
Yeah.
Pennsylvania and Ohio and Virginia and
Mm.
whoever else is trying to escape the cold for 10 days.
Well, I was a Michigan guy. I grew up in Ohio, but played my college ball in Michigan. So, similar mentality. Like, it's
Yep.
you kind of have your guys around you, but then you try to get to Florida, get to the
Yep.
warm weather because you
Yep.
don't always get it. Like, you guys probably still have like snow flurries in some April
Yep.
games, right? Like, it's just kind of that's the reality in the
Yeah.
north. But there's some great baseball in your
Oh,
guys'
absolutely.
area, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of times, I think of all the division levels, D3 is like the one level where it's not all like West Coast South powerhouse. It's probably
No.
flipped in Division 3, right? So
Yeah.
there's a ton of powerhouse that you guys probably have an opportunity to have to recruit against and have to
Oh,
go up
yeah.
against, right? So.
Yeah, one of the biggest schools that we recruit against at our level is the Coast Guard Academy,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they're in a really strong conference, and I think they won 30 or 35 games the last two
Yep.
seasons, and they've just done a really good job with that program. But they're a military, coastal
Hmm.
and Navy ROTC school, so
Yep.
we're fighting kind of over the same kids. But yeah, you're right. The Northeast is just jam packed with Division
Hmm.
three schools, and I
Yeah.
mean, you're fighting tooth and nail for every recruit in New England and every game you can get that they're trying to, strength of schedule matters just so much nowadays that
Yeah.
you're just trying to play the best you can.
I mean, you look at the D3 final that was just going,
Yep.
happening right now,
Yeah.
Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, right? And
Yeah.
Misericordia last year coming out of
Yep.
Pennsylvania winning the thing. So Eastern Connecticut State, right, with like
Yep.
lots of national championships. So, that's one thing you guys, if you guys are looking at or open to opportunities at the Division 3 type of schools, it's not always necessarily at that level, kind of the southern and western states that are going to be the power. Now, there are powerhouses in those regions, don't get me
Oh
wrong,
yeah.
but there are a ton of top 25 schools outside of those regions there too. All right, I think that's a great background. So, Coach, let's talk a little bit about your recruiting process. So, there's some different factors that you were kind of touching on there. How do you begin to identify recruits? What's sort of your process and kind of like beginning, like from the beginning, building your list, beginning communication, like kind of talk about your timeline and just kind of how you begin to identify potential recruits for your program.
Yeah, so I'll kind of talk about where we're at now,
Yeah.
just so that when we're using class years,
Yep.
it kind of is a little bit more relevant. But so right now we're doing the transition of getting the seniors who just graduated, the
Hmm.
25s, their new student paperwork, and getting them ready to come to campus in the fall. Um, there's a little bit of work with some transfer kids now that
Mm.
the season's over, but we can talk about that a little bit later. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the 26s, so the juniors who will become seniors in the fall, that really started for us as a Division 3 school, really January 1. That's the opportunity that I can start just blasting out the kids, hey, here's what Norwich is about, here's what it is, the intro process. I also think too, for me personally, being really the only coach on our staff that does most of the recruiting.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, you just get bogged down in the season, and it's really hard to worry and think about the next class already when you're worried about your own team plus the next class in the fall rather than two classes out. But
Hmm.
in terms of that timeline, we host a prospect camp in the fall for all classes. We go to tournaments, we travel the best we can around New England, but a lot of it starts and continues with that initial outreach from the prospect or the
Yep.
recruit themselves. And we can talk, in more in depth as some questions come up or if we have the topic, but that email and that first initial contact is just so important. I'm getting 25 to 30 a day, and it's just how do you stick out and what's important to certain schools you're looking at, especially at a Division III level. So um, I would say, going into the fall of your junior year should really be the time that you're reaching out to schools. Once you contact a school, they are open to contact you back. They don't have to wait until January 1, but if you've never talked to them, sometimes it's hard to just sit and wait that they'll talk to you first.
Yep.
But prospect camps, and I would say one of the big things for me is when we run our prospect camp, it is open to all classes. But it is invite only. So the way that we run our camp is it's specifically for kids we have on our recruiting board. I think in the last 3 years, we've averaged anywhere between 20 and 25 kids. That's it.
Okay.
And about 80% of our following year's recruiting class commits attended that camp. So we keep it pretty personal. I'm not trying to say don't go to these big camps and get yourself seen. I think that's great, but just be cautious about, who's asking and why you're going and is there really a possibility of you attending that school or are you just going to, grab some metrics and some video and get out of there. So
For sure.
yeah.
Now, what kind of events do you kind of have planned to go to? Where do you, what's kind of your summer look like, summer and fall, I guess, as well, kind of showcase sort of circuit. What do you kind of get out to just from your perspective?
Yeah, so I actually had the privilege the last 2 summers of coaching travel teams. So I had a
Oh, nice.
U15 and a U14 team, which was a great switch up from
Oh,
coaching
yeah.
college to then teaching kids who had never been on a big field before.
Yeah.
But really that New England tour, the Firecracker tour,
Hmm.
the USA Baseball Series, really the ones that tend to have the most teams at is really kind of where we start early in the summer, and then as the summer goes along, you just kind of connect with the guys that you have connected with at the
Hmm.
games, or you've kind of put down and put a pin in and said we got to watch this kid. And then more specifically for us, because we are a little bit of a smaller school,
Hmm.
I've already talked to a bunch of 26s that have their summer schedule set. So I plan to kind of go see those kids individually rather
Yeah.
than going to an event and just kind of broadly,
Hmm.
scanning all 18 guys on the field. It's more of just who do I want to see and kind of make that connection with and really see them in person.
So you would say, and we tell our guys this all the time, but you would sort of confirm that, as a college coach, you rely on guys reaching out to you, expressing interest, making that
Yeah.
known because there's so many guys out there that you could look at. And you
Yeah.
are in, you're in Vermont, probably not a huge recruiting budget. You're probably not traveling to
Right.
Kentucky or Georgia or Texas. But if guys are interested from those places, you're open to talking to them if they reach out and express that interest, right?
Yeah, so I mean, funny enough, if you were to take a look at our roster, I would
Hmm.
say it's about 50% New England, 50% everywhere else. I mean,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
starting third baseman's out of Miami, our
Hmm.
shortstop's out of San Antonio. We have 3 kids out of California. We have 3 more from Texas coming this fall, 2 or 3 out of Virginia. I mean, if you want to get seen and you fall in love with a school,
Hmm.
you'll get to where you want to go. I just think the biggest piece of that process that I think a lot of folks overlook is just the importance of narrowing down those schools and then getting your feet there. I think a lot of people can fall in love with the idea of a school and an idea of what a coach is kind of selling to you or what he's kind of telling you is going to happen when you get there. But I'll tell you, I've seen more kids commit on the spot on their first visit than I have kids who just have never come to campus and then they
Hmm.
just shown up. I have more kids that commit on their connecting flight home than I do kids calling me after never being to campus and saying, "I love every picture I've seen on
Yeah.
Google. I'm coming." You know what I mean?
Yeah, yep, yep, absolutely. And
Um,
but the research is important, right? Doing that
oh,
research ahead of time, because
yes,
like you said, and as you talked about, you guys have, even though you have programs for any student, there's still going to be sort of that culture there, right? And that's
right.
important for guys to understand about whether it's Norwich or any place they're researching, knowing what they're looking at and getting into.
Yeah, I mean, start with just what you're kind of interested in
Yeah.
studying, right? I mean, that's kind of the cliche, like make sure you have their major, but
Hmm.
ultimately it's the truth, right? Like there's such a small percentage of athletes, not just baseball, but athletes in general that get a scholarship to play in
Hmm.
college.
Hmm.
And those who don't, there's not necessarily too much owed to you in terms of playing time and your experience and that sort of thing. So when you're looking at a Division 3 school or even a Division 2 school, make sure they have a place or an opportunity that you feel like you're going to enjoy it more than just the baseball field.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what the best part about Division 3 is that our guys love baseball, but they also love fishing and snowboarding and skiing and playing flag football in the fall. Like there's just so much
Yeah.
more about a college experience, I think, that
Yeah.
matters if you don't have a chance to experience, a visit in person.
And you would strongly encourage a visit, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
it's almost impossible to make a decision without seeing it first, right?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
I would say my first 3 or 4 questions when I get an email from a recruit that I ask back, I rarely acknowledge most that's in the email. I take a look, and then my response is if they haven't included it, what's your GPA? What's
Mm-hmm.
your area of study? Are you interested in Norwich? And what have you heard about us? And do you plan to visit? Like,
Yeah. Yep.
and those are my real big four things
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
kind of disqualify or qualify
Yeah.
a prospect within 2 emails.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not against mass emails. I get it. It's easier, it's quicker, it's faster. You get it out to more coaches, but just make sure when you're writing it, it does sound personal. You are
Mm-hmm.
kind of quick to the point. I love when kids talk about how great of a teammate they are, but sometimes great teammate only gets you so far. Do you have video? Have you played a
Mm-hmm.
bunch? What kind of, I have kids from Texas that only played their senior year, which is okay, but were they at a high comp level and
Yep.
or did they just not play? So,
Yep.
just making sure you're specific yet personal in terms of what you're trying to get out of it.
Great stuff. So, there's a question that popped in. I'm going to get to some of the answer on the eligibility stuff there. The person that put that question, but I wanted to go to the second one real quick. This is a great question. So the question came in: Why would you choose D3 over junior college? Seems like a lot of people are kind of looking JUCO right now,
Yeah.
and there's definitely some valid reason to look at the junior college route, of course,
Yeah.
right? But if you had that question, or if you had a guy on a visit who was maybe thinking about you guys and thinking about junior college, how might you're not always necessarily trying to like oversell it, but how would you
Right.
what would you talk about? Like, here are some of the benefits of maybe coming to us rather than at JUCO.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, and I try when I recruit, I try to be as upfront,
Yeah.
transparent, and honest as I can. I mean, that's just how I try to run my recruiting process. And if the JUCO or NAI, the NJCCA, if they're a better fit, like then I'll let them know it's a better fit. I
Mm-hmm.
asked the
Mm-hmm.
kid, what are you looking to get out of your baseball career and your education? Do I think you're getting a poor education at a JUCO? No. But do I think that there is a difference between a Division 3 education and a JUCO education? Yes. But if your goal is to play 2 years at a junior college, get a bunch of credits out of the way, and then look to transfer at a higher level, a better Division 2 school, a mid-major D1, or a Whitewater or a Messiah that just played in the Division 3 championship. Like if you're looking to kind of get to the highest level of whatever level you can, I say there's nothing wrong with the JUCO route at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
would never, at least I would hope I would never tell a kid, D3 is better than JUCO. I think you just get two different experiences. It's really all about what the kid wants to get out of his 4 years of eligibility.
I agree with that 100%. I think, the way I always kind of think of it is, it's about finding the right fit, like you
Yeah.
said, but also, it's a different experience. It's just, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just a different kind of experience. I think, as you said, the 4-year opportunity, whether it's a D3 or anywhere else, you got the dorms, you got kind of the student life, you've got a lot more of that going on. Where JUCO, I would say, probably is really more of a baseball decision,
Right.
and
Right.
D3 is more of like the whole picture kind of
Yeah,
decision.
and that's totally fair. And I don't think
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think any coach out there, I hope, would ever,
Mm-hmm.
downplay what junior college is for some kids. I also think that there's a financial
Yeah.
responsibility involved with that decision.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately what the end game is of this. You get 4 years, right? You get 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
10 semesters.
Yep.
How do you want those to go? And what do they look like for yourself? And what's that path? And what's best for you? Is it staying closer to home? There's a lot more JUCOs down south than there are up
Mm-hmm.
in New England,
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
right? And so are you willing to go to a 4 year where it's a little bit colder and get a good education and play for 4 years? Or do you want to stay closer to home, commute, get your AA, your associates, and then move on to
Mm-hmm.
the highest level you can? I mean, it's really whatever's best for the kid.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So the initial question that came in was about kind of like years of eligibility. So if you play at a junior college, at least as of today, that's counting for your 4 years. Now, there is a lot of stuff out there around some of the different, court cases and settlements and things where there's some rules that, who knows, 2, 3, 4 years from now, maybe you're going to change. But as of today, right now, if you go to a junior college, it counts as one of your 4 years. So if you spend 1 year there, you got 3 years left. You get 2 years down there, you got 2 years left. So that, just to be very clear about kind of that right now. Anything else you've heard out there? Anything else where guys have been granted extra years? Those are like individual cases, or those are going to be like just for guys who were in college at that time. Anybody who's a high school dude, it's still going to be, you got your 4 years, right? And there's always going to be like different rumors out there, right, Coach? And so a big part of this is like education on the recruiting process as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think it's always good to, when you ask coaches, not just myself, but as
Mm-hmm.
the folks listening that go through this process, it's okay to kind of double check a
Yeah.
coach and what he said, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
go home and do some research and then follow up with a question. I think that's a perfectly
Mm-hmm.
fine approach to this process. I mean, you want to get the most information, the most accurate information you can. But Andy, you're correct. Yeah, you'll, at this point, other than I think it's the class of 2021 or
Mm-hmm.
2022.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that class, anybody who attends JUCO will use year of eligibility.
And it all can change, and we will keep, hey, we're
It
all
could
going to
change
be.
tomorrow. Yeah.
You're exactly right. Like, we're all watching it. Anytime something changes, we'll do our best to keep you guys educated and updated on all that as well. Coach, you started to touch on a little bit of this. I want to, you're a guy who's in it, man. You're coaching, you're out there, you're rubbing shoulders with all these coaches at these different events, and like you've got your people, like, so I know that you're really in it. So I would love for you to kind of just be able to provide some perspective as a current college coach right now, just kind of on the overall state of college baseball recruiting, right? Like there's a lot of anxiousness around it from a lot of families. We see it. It's getting older. Guys seem to be hanging around longer. It seems like, there's extremely, it's really challenging, right, in a lot of ways. And so just, I'm going to kind of start there, like start general, and then I want to get to maybe some more specific stuff. When you kind of think about like how recruiting was 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago versus how it is today, what are some of like the changes that you've noticed in your own experience at the college level?
I mean, I think 4 or 5 years ago, right, you were looking at every junior and senior in high school. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
there was
Mm-hmm.
the kids that would transfer were transferring to the one school that they wanted. There wasn't a
Yeah.
portal, it wasn't a bidding war. There was
Mm-hmm.
really none of this, circus that went along with entering the portal. It was, I'm entering it because I want to transfer to a school closer to home, or I just looked at this school that was my second school, and I'm not having a good time here. I'm going to transfer to what my second choice was. So that's what it was 4 or 5 years ago. And in terms of kind of the ages of the players and kind of those at our level, at least for me, most of those COVID kids have
Mm-hmm.
aged out at this
They're
point.
kind of out now. Yep.
Yeah, and it's very rare. Um, that I see a redshirt freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time I've ever really seen it is due to injury. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not due to me telling them, hey, you're not going to play. You should probably redshirt to save a year. It's,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you're done for the year. Like, redshirt so you get it back.
Yeah.
So really, in terms of kind of my world of recruiting, I'm still focused on juniors and seniors in high
Yep.
school. I
Yep.
really haven't changed my approach. I kind of have my veins of where I like to recruit out of. There's a lot of military families in the Florida, Texas, Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
California area. And I lose a lot of battles in the New England area just because there's so many Division III schools. And not everybody wants to go to the most northern one of them all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I really think for me, the approach really hasn't changed. But we do dabble in the transfer portal, and I do have a kid that we're talking to at this time that we were his second choice. He chose a different school, didn't have a great time, or really just his
Mm-hmm.
experience wasn't what he thought it was going to be, and now he's considering coming back to Norwich. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really where I see a lot of my transfer work done, and we dabble in it, but I'm not ever going to build a 40-man roster full of transfers. A small Division III school cannot function that way,
Yep.
and at our level, you got to think of more than just your program. You have to think of the success of the university, 4-year graduates, affinity to the school. They love everything about their experience at Norwich. They want to either give back, come back, or send their kids here eventually. So I think there's a lot more to it than just in the moment wins that we don't necessarily always concern ourselves with as they might at the Division I level or even
Yep.
Division II level. Yeah.
I would, and I've seen a lot of the same kind of things, and I do think that at the Division III level it will be a little bit different. You know, more guys are probably choosing that school because of the school. It's
Yep.
not. I mean, hey, man, we're both D3 guys, so you know, but it's not necessarily like the destination for guys if they're entering the portal to go to a D3 either. So
Definitely.
most D3 schools, it probably hasn't changed a ton, but like you said, some are maybe going to dabble a little bit.
Yeah.
Certainly, some of the dudes that get really good maybe
Mhm.
are leaving more often now than maybe they were 5 or 6 years ago. A lot of those guys probably would just stick around and become just the greatest player in school history. But
Yeah.
now those guys are just saying, "Hey, I'm going to go to play UConn, man. I could probably get a chance to
Right.
go play there last year or whatever." So, you know, we
Yep.
are probably seeing a little bit more of that where some of the guys
Oh yeah.
maybe not necessarily going there with the intent of transferring, but it's like, geez, I developed into a really good player. I'm going to go transfer somewhere else. And so, you know, there's always going to be a different way that those kind of things are used too.
Absolutely.
Have
Yeah.
you lost some guys? Have you guys had anybody move on like transfer wise? Like what's kind of like just curious like for you specifically, kind of the numbers for you.
Yeah, I mean we've had and so this will be kind of my I guess totality wise my
Yeah.
eighth or ninth season with the program.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think I've seen five kids
Yeah.
transfer
Right.
and most of that was due to finances, playing time, or just personal choice and not
Yep.
enjoying their time at school. Um,
Yep. Yep.
I've never had it personally. I've never had a conversation where I've told a kid, "Hey, we're bringing in
Right.
X, you
Yeah.
should probably try to find a new home." I've never done that. I think it's a Norwich thing, honestly, but
Yeah. Yep.
I value myself on that honesty and integrity. And if I make a commitment to you and you make a commitment to me, like I'm gonna get whatever I can out of
Mm-hmm.
you in 4 years. And that's ultimately my hope. And now sometimes come the end of sophomore year, it didn't really pan out the way we wanted, and may or may not make the team come the
Yeah.
following fall. But that's just kind of a different approach than kind of just telling a kid, hey, you should probably find somewhere else to go.
Yeah, I saw a graphic just before our call here, kind of floating around social media, where somebody had ranked um, all of the Division I super regional teams in like the percentage of where guys came from. It was really cool. UCLA, 90% high school guys.
Yeah.
So UCLA still bringing in a bunch of high school dudes. Texas, San Antonio, UTSA, like 36% high school guys, almost an entire roster of like
Yep.
transfer portal guy, whatever. And so there's going to be lots of different mentalities, the way coaches recruit, but even at some of the strongest programs, you know, they're still trying to get maybe the 4 year guys and develop them. So it's all about for you guys as recruits, just finding what the right fit is and having the best opportunity. Wouldn't you say that it's like, man, like rather than almost more than ever, we really can't force our way in somewhere. We got to find just the best opportunity and see where it takes us, right?
Yeah, I mean 100%. And kind of my timeline wise is
Mm-hmm.
I usually like to try to have most of my class finished by the calendar year. So by
Mm-hmm.
their like senior fall or by their senior December. And by finalize, I mean I'm down to my top 20 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody else rolls in March, I'm not going to turn them down. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if a coach kind of puts a timeline on you, I don't appreciate that approach. I don't do that. I kind of say, hey, here's what's fair to both of us. I need a decision kind of by maybe May 1st, so I can
Mm-hmm.
have enough of the summer to find your replacement if you don't come. But I also think too, for those of you out there listening, it is totally fair and acceptable to just say no, thank you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot easier as a coach to get an email. In that moment it hurts, but you get the email that says, "Hey, coach, I really appreciate all you done. I just don't think Norwich is a good fit for me,
Mm-hmm.
or it didn't make my top three or my top five or whatever the reasoning is." But um, I would always err on the side of communication than just not talking to a coach and just kind of blowing them off. Because I will say, if that thing that you went after doesn't pan out and you come crawling back and you ask, "Hey, coach, do you still have a spot?" I'll tell you 9 times out of 10 that spot's gone. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
you got redlined across the board and they moved on, and it's just an unfortunate event. But if you handle it correctly,
Yeah.
you come back and say, "Hey, it didn't pan out. I'd really like to still consider coming to your school." They're a lot more receptive to that than if you just kind of blow them off. So
Well, and if you look at the story of the guy you're talking to right now,
Right.
that was an
Yeah.
example of he ended up going somewhere else, but you probably maintained a really good relationship all the way through. He probably said, "Hey, coach, I decided to go here," and you probably said, "Hey, man, the door's always open," right? And
Yeah.
so, and
That,
now,
that's exactly what happened.
here's where
Yeah.
we're at a year or two later. So,
Yeah.
I think I appreciate you telling the families that because you may have your eye on certain kind of schools or certain kind of programs, but until you have an offer or until that thing is written down, don't close any doors too quickly for sure.
Yeah, and I will just add, Andy, because of that last line you had said there, just as a reminder, like at a Division 3 level, I use a celebratory signing day letter,
Right,
but
right.
just remember that if you sign something and you want to go to a different school, that's fine. There's no
Yep.
like legal binding, but
Yeah.
also at the same time, remember I mean, I'm bringing in 16 freshmen, so like, don't think like, oh, I signed, I'm in. I made the team. You got to come prepared in September
Hmm.
to crack the 40-man roster and say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to take the summer off. I'm still going to try
Yep.
to make the team. Yeah.
And with a lot of the changes with like the national letter of intent going away and all that, I mean, it's all really, I mean, these people are going to need like lawyers to read through all
Yeah.
these new things now. It's a crazy new world. So,
It is.
coach, kind of speaking of some of that, have you seen kind of a difference in your interaction with recruits? Again, I know you have there's a certain kind of kid that's probably reaching out to you maybe versus a lot of the other kind of schools, but in a general sense, have you noticed a little bit of a difference in like some of your interactions with families and kind of like what they maybe are sort of like expecting from like their college experience or hey, what kind of like NLI or NIL opportunities are you going to have for me at Norwich? Like, have you
Yeah.
had those kind of like approaches from families, or do you kind of feel like you're kind of in an okay spot as far as some of those kind of conversations?
I mean, in terms of the NIL specifically,
Yeah,
we offer our athletic department offers a resource to help
sure. Yep.
students find them themselves. So I
Mm-hmm.
probably have 8 guys that have their own NIL deals through
Mm-hmm.
whether it's back home local businesses,
Yeah.
apparel stores that they post for social media, whatever the case is. But in
Yep.
terms of
Yep.
like the university having an
Mm-hmm.
NIL fund, like that's
Right.
we don't have anything like that.
Right. Right.
And I haven't had too many conversations. I think a lot of kids I don't deal with a lot of kids that let me put it this way, I don't deal with a lot of kids that are comparing a Division 1 school to Norwich,
Yep. Yep.
right? So
Yep.
I don't run into a lot of kids that are talking to me about, well, here's what UConn is
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
me, here's what Boston College is giving me, like what does Norwich have to offer?
Mm-hmm.
I don't run into a lot of those. I run into a lot more of the Division 2.
Mm-hmm.
They're offering me a scholarship. What's the money look like here? But I haven't run into any NIL conversations. And to be honest, I think the majority of those conversations, I think, are kind of null and void after our first 3 or 4 email communications. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'll reiterate, I'm pretty blunt, pretty upfront, pretty transparent about it. And if you're not a right fit, like we'll find that out in 3 emails and a phone call. And NIL playing time, none of that will even come up because you
Mm-hmm.
won't even get through the first threshold. So uh,
Yep.
I think I probably have more conversations about safety on campus than I do about NIL.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so we've had a few questions come in here, Coach, and this might kind of spark some other, ways to go for us.
Mhm.
You kind of touched on your timeline, question. Just to get your perspective. I think I kind of know where you may go with it, but as a 26 grad, the question is it too late to be reaching out to D1s, D2s, D3s? I think I know the answer, but just give some more context
Yeah.
for what your kind of thoughts are for like 26s, where are we at, and just kind of think a big picture for like across all these different division levels, where you kind of picture where they're at.
Yeah, for sure. I think 2026 is our, at least for a Division 3 school, and I definitely would probably, I don't want to speak for all of the Division 2s, but
Mm-hmm.
Division 2, I wouldn't say that either.
Mm-hmm.
Division 1, I know a little bit less about their recruiting cycle, but I mean, if you have Division 1 stuff and you're a 2026, like they're gonna find you, you're gonna find a home at that level if you're a fit for that level. Um, but for Division 3, no. I mean, I really got into the trenches with 2026 is only about 2 months ago.
Sure.
Um,
Yep.
and I would say though, not necessarily that you're behind the 8 ball or behind anybody else or late to the game, but just make sure you have all your stuff ready when you send that first email, right? Like have some metrics ready, have your height, have your weight, have some lifting numbers. The gym is just so important. Um, have some video available, and I'm a big video guy. That's how I do a lot of my kind of initial qualification is video.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure it's quality video. If it's a video of a 3-minute video of you hitting doubles and bombs, like that's great, but So you're telling me you never strike out, or you never ground out, or you never have a bad swing, and you never have to hustle out a chopper to short? Like, it's okay to show kind of the quote unquote bad parts of your game. Because are there good parts in that bad thing, right? Did you approach the ground ball correctly and then boot it? Or, did you just kind of wait back and it's a bad habit? And I don't want a kid who's got bad habits, right? So have your stuff ready, have the personality of here's who I am, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I want to study, here's my grades, here's my weight, here's my stuff. Let me know if you think I'm a good fit. I would kind of shy away from at this point 2026's that, hey, coach, I'm really interested in your school. I think it will be a great fit. I'd love to be a cadet. I love what you've done with all of your pitchers and your pitching staff. Please take a look at my profile. Those usually get trashed in about 5 seconds after I
Mm.
read the most robotic two lines. How do you know that I've, done well with my pitchers? You have no idea. I could be telling them to run polls for 4 hours a day. And, it's so just be very specific, have an approach, have intent in what you're doing, and you'll be all right. I mean, there's no way, long story short, sorry about that, but there's no way you're behind the eight ball 2026 at all. And I would even go as far as to say 2025's. I still think there's opportunity for you out there if you have, are still unsure or are just kind of late to this game and maybe a late bloomer.
We've had dozens of roster openings come in for coaches on 25 still. Now,
Mhm.
maybe not at the highest levels, right? But,
Right.
for coaches that are still, looking at those kind of guys, there's actually a ton of them. And then, yeah, I would agree with you, coach. The 26s we're getting still, even at the Division I level, a lot of coaches that are reaching out and saying, hey, yeah, we're pretty open. Here's,
Yeah.
send us some guys. So, there's everybody's still looking, now
Well,
do people have commits and some offers out and things at some of the higher levels, of course, but everybody's still looking if the right guy comes around. So yeah, you're not too
absolutely.
late at all. All right,
Mhm.
coach, you're out at an event, a showcase, a
Yep.
camp, maybe even at your camp. How do these families kind of handle their interactions with you at those events? So the question is, how do we best handle our interactions with coaches at like a camp or a showcase? What should they be doing? How should they be sort of presenting themselves at at an event for a coach? And if a coach maybe comes up to them to talk to them, what should they maybe be ready to talk about? Or how do your kind of conversations go if you're at an event and
Yeah.
you want to go up to one of your guys and talk to them?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go two different examples. So the
Yeah,
first example being, I've never been in touch
yeah,
with this player. Come up, introduce yourself. Explain, who you're playing for, where you're actually from. Especially with these travel balls, it's hard to kind of know where everybody's exactly from.
yep,
And just say, would you mind if I sent you an email with a lot of my stuff? Are you looking to recruit middle infielders in 2026? Or are you not? Kind of just feel it out.
yeah,
It's just a very introductory conversation, and say, I've looked up your school a little bit. I knew you were going to be here. And then just kind of say, I'll make sure to send you an email, and then send the email. Like, as soon as you get home, send it from your phone, have a parent read it or somebody read it before you send it. And just say, hey, coach, I appreciate you taking some time. I'd love to follow up in a little bit of a longer email talking about myself. Is that something that's fine? Or can we hop on a phone call to talk about it? The second example would be if I've already kind of talked with a kid before. I think it's awesome that they come up to you first, and say, "Hey, coach, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming to watch. I know I did this, this, and this." Or, it's kind of awkward when they come up to me like, "Did you see me strike 10 guys out?" It's like, yeah, I did watch the game, yes, but I also saw you walked 5 guys, and I also saw you balk twice and throw 8 wild pitches. So just kind of stay away from the stats and the kind of the performance when you're having those conversations. Let the
yeah,
coach bring that up. Say, hey, great job striking those guys out. A little bit of humility goes a long way. And then I always enjoy meeting parents when it's appropriate. So if the parents are kind of in the background there, and the player says, "Hey, do you mind if I introduce you to my parents?" I'm very open to that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I am not necessarily so open when a parent comes up to me during the game and says,
Hey, that's my son out there.
I'm such and such as
Yeah,
parent. Like, what do you think of him so far?"
yeah, yep, yep,
Well, I would potentially be coaching your kid, not you. My relationship would be with him. So that's kind of what I'm trying to focus on and see if he'd
yeah,
be a good fit for our culture and our team. And parents don't necessarily help their son's case. I try not to hold that against parents. I think parents just want what's best for their kid.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
I don't hold it against them, but there is a line once you get to that college level that, any conversations about playing time or about, performance or about going to class, not going to class, are they happy? Are they sad? Are they injured? That's got to go through the kid to the parents and from the parents to the kid to the coach.
Yep. Yep.
So it's just good to get into those habits early and let the player introduce you as parents to the coach when the player feels or the coach feels it's appropriate.
I love that. That's great advice. Now, I also appreciate that you talked about, when you're watching the players, you don't have to necessarily see a guy go 4 for 4, or like you said, throw a no hitter to be interested. He could go 0 for 4, but you might leave that game and be like, that's a ball player. Like I gotta have that guy. So
Yeah,
it's not all about the results either, right?
I mean, Jack Cagliano, right? I mean, he's 0 for
Yeah.
3 the other night against the
Yep.
Cards, and he hits 3 balls almost 100 miles an hour off the
Yep.
bat.
Yep.
So I can deal with outs, right? I mean, the
Yep.
age-old saying, you hit 300, you fail 7 out of 10 times, you go to the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things that, like, do you compete? Do you pick your teammates up? Do you cheer in the dugout, or do you pout? Do you mope? Do
Mm-hmm.
you scream and yell and argue? And because those are a lot of habits you, as a coach, A, you can't change, and B, you don't have enough time to change them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
have enough time to work on a kid's attitude.
Mm-hmm.
You're either going to be a good teammate or you're not. So I wouldn't say I focus too much on that. I think there's a lot of
Yep.
social media stuff out there that says
Mm-hmm.
if a coach is there to see you, he's watching you the whole time. Like, I'm not, I promise. Like, I'm not, I can't just stare at you. There's other kids I want to watch. I also
Mm-hmm.
enjoy watching a game of baseball. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but just, think about how you'd want somebody to see you for the first time. And parents, the same thing. How would you want that
Mm-hmm.
first interaction with somebody new to go, adult to adult? So I think that there's just a lot of boundaries that need to be respected until that relationship kind of blossoms and you're texting the kid, you're on phone calls with the
Mm-hmm.
kid. As soon as I feel comfortable, I give the parents my phone number,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes parents have questions that
Yep.
aren't necessarily relative to the baseball portion, but and sometimes they don't always feel comfortable asking in front of the kid. What are the safety statistics? How does financial aid work? What's
Yep.
it's got? The money conversations, things like that, aren't necessarily always appropriate with the player around. But
Yeah.
I have no problem having a relationship with the parents, but my first relationship needs to be with the player.
For sure, absolutely. And you mentioned it too. Like I saw a guy was going to go watch him play, and I mean, he literally hit a ball. I mean, like up the silo about 400 feet straight up, and it's like if he'd hit that ball a quarter inch down, he'd have put it on the street out there. Like, even though it was an out, or maybe the catcher didn't even catch it, but anyway, like it's one of those sky. Like no other kid on this field is hitting a ball that high, even if it's
Right.
straight up.
Yeah,
So,
no, absolutely. And I think a lot of size and strength and
yeah,
projectability has a lot to do with it, right?
yep, yep,
If a
yep.
kid's got good, clean mechanics, but he's got
Mm-hmm.
kind of a lanky frame, like I can get you in the gym, but
Mm-hmm.
you got the mechanics, I'll get you in the gym, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
Maybe less efficient of mechanics of a pitcher. Like I'm a little hesitant to say,
Mm-hmm.
how long is it going to take to kind of get him
Yeah.
out of those habits? And do we have enough time to do that?
All right, Coach. Speaking, a question came in around here. So, again, we talked about metrics a little bit.
Yeah.
We got a lefty,
Yep.
kind of a typical normal arm slot. What's a good goal for like velocity? What would you kind of like to see for a guy maybe coming in? There can always be and everything about metrics is always a grain of salt, guys. Like there's always ranges, right? But what do you like to see? What kind of jumps out at you? Or what do you say I can work with that?
I mean, like to be honest with you, like the first thing I need to see is the ability to throw 2 pitches for strikes,
Mm-hmm.
and most importantly, do you get outs, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen left-handers and right-handers who throw 75 that get more outs than the guy who throws 85.
Yep.
Do you compete? Do you have that in you, or do you kind of just complain, or are you willing to put your nose in the ground? Those are really like the first things I look for. Now, if you just kind of want to go on a very 8,000-foot level of where could I go or what's a good goal for me? I mean, 80 is always a good start. I mean, that'll probably get you to any level, anywhere you want. Um, I mean, you start pushing 85, 88 as a left-handed guy with a pitch and a half or 2.5 pitches, you'll start getting some upper D2 looks, probably some mid or low D1 looks. And then you start touching an 8-8 or a 9, and you're probably going to get an offer at some point, is my guess. Um, but I mean, I would honestly really focus on the ability to throw 2.5 quality pitches. I mean, you got to have a fastball. You got to have either a changeup, slider, curve. You have to have 2 pitches that when you walk onto campus, not I can learn when I'm there. No, you got to show up in the fall ready to throw. And if you kind of have a little dud of a changeup, but it's got a little bit of life there, we can make it work. And now you got three. But I will tell you, it's one of the most heartbreaking things when a kid emails me and says, "Here's how hard I throw. I promise I throw this hard." Okay, well let me see some video first.
Sure.
I throw this hard. This is some video or some pictures, and I also throw a fastball, cutter, two seam slider, curveball, and a changeup. Okay, so which one do you throw for a strike? Which one gets you an out? Can you throw all six? Don't walk onto campus with this big arsenal. Go on there and say,
Mhm.
I have the three best pitches on the pitching staff, and here they are. And then develop a third or fourth or fifth if you've become a starter or whatever. But you want to
Yep.
be a quality reliever at a Division III level, you got a little bit of a heater and some sort of breaker that goes one way and one the other way, and you're going to dominate. I'll tell you that.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt about it. Good stuff. All right. So coach, Division threes, we've touched on it here and our families are, mostly they understand that it's a non-athletic scholarship level. So where does the financial aid come? How do you guys sort of handle that conversation? How are families able to still maximize their financial aid despite the fact that you as a coach have really like no say in being able to give them here's an
Yeah.
X amount of money? Like how do they kind of
Yeah.
have those conversations for D3?
Yeah, so I would say I'll speak for Norwich, but I would say it's probably pretty much across the board
Yeah.
at most
Yep.
Division III schools, right? You get accepted at the time of acceptance, you're going to get a merit aid scholarship,
Mhm.
which is usually, I don't know, somewhere between a third of what the cost of the overall cost would be of a year. I know like ours range from like 28,000 to like 33,000, and you get that off the bat every year for all 4 years. Um, and like so that takes a whole lot off the top, and then obviously based on GPA and I would say also too whatever major you're going into, scholarships that are available through the university to apply for. Obviously, any local or state funding you can get from where you're from. Norwich is a private 4 year school, so they're able to get a little bit of different funding, not necessarily state or federal as much, just because it is a private school. But
Mhm.
um, and then obviously then you have the FAFSA to complete, which you need to complete pretty much for anywhere, which kind of makes up the other end. So I would say like on average for Norwich, it really depends. But I mean, a kid you get a sticker price of 77,000, and in reality, if you just take your time and go through the process and get the number back on average, our guys are paying anywhere between 21 and 26 a year.
Out of pocket.
Yeah, yeah, for
And then
themselves.
that's what they're either kind of splitting up or maybe getting some
Yeah,
other student loans for if they
yeah,
want to go that route. As so it's
yeah.
usually the sticker price is usually never what anybody's just writing a check for.
No, and that's why
Yeah.
I say, there's go to the website, do your
Yep.
research, and that's not just Norwich. Any school you
Yep.
go to,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
you look at if you're a high GPA and you want a great conference and you're thinking about a NESCAC school and you think 77's a lot, just go take a look, some NESCAC prices. But
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's going up, but I think all universities are doing their best to offset it as much as they can.
Yeah.
And I will say that most universities do have a little bit of a discretionary fund involved in financial aid that we do have like a match um, program where if you
Yep.
get a scholarship or your financial aid letter from a different school, you can present that to the admissions office and they'll do their best to either match it or come as close as they can. So I've seen people knock off $8,000-$10,000 for a year just by doing the match program. So um, I would always say if you really love the school, go all the way to the end
Yep.
before making a decision and just really see what it looks like. Don't just say, "Oh, I can't afford it." Well, we don't know if you can or can't afford it until, March when FAFSA
Mm.
is starting to finally send stuff out. So, uh,
Yep.
just kind of take your time with it and trust the process and enjoy it.
Yeah, I had those same conversations as a Division III coach myself. At a expensive, private, high academic, D3. It's definitely a place where that sticker price is very scary sometimes, but
Yes.
nobody pays it. We had a lot of guys who were very hesitant at first that we ended up getting. So
Oh yeah.
it go through the
Yeah.
process, it'll work out. So
Yeah.
all right, so coach. We might keep this rolling if some other questions
Yeah.
pop in. But if you don't mind here, let me just kind of finish up a couple things here, guys. So just a couple reminders. We got our roster openings coming in. We talk to coaches. We get this information from them. We share that information with you guys so you can sort through those roster openings. If you guys want to get some updated evaluation matches on our side, get some video up, get some numbers up, recruiting coaches, we can evaluate you, give you some feedback, get those one-on-one calls scheduled, and then we'll reach out to coaches on your guys' behalf as well. High match programs, coaches come to us, they say, hey, we're looking for this. We'll send out lists of guys. So we will do some of that proactive outreach. So just some reminders if you guys weren't remembering, those are some things that we're we're doing on our side to help you as well. All right, I'm going to go in the chat box here real quick, guys, myself before it gets too full, and I'm going to throw in a link to a survey. I just threw a link to a survey in there. So if you guys could take 30 seconds right now, pull up that survey link. I hope tonight's conversation has been helpful. This has been awesome. But we'd love to hear that. But just give us some feedback, guys. Let us know how things are coming along there. Coach, I think I might have missed a couple questions in the chat box.
Okay.
I'm going to get to some of these real quick. But if you guys fill out that survey link, keep the questions coming. But if you don't have any other questions, we're done as far as any like content here. Let's get to some of these other questions here, though, Coach. So, so the transfer portal, JUCO to D3, that's pretty straight up. You just got to get into the school, right? Division III, there really is no eligibility requirement. There's no NCAA eligibility center or anything. If the school admits you, you play.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
And it's honestly, it's a pretty simple process.
Yeah.
It's not transferring in general to a Division III school is not very deep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty quick, easy. You make sure that you get your tracer out from the NCAA and you talk to the school. If you're doing it from your university, make sure you talk to your athletic director and you just get your self-release or be released from the coach, so just make sure you do all the steps before reaching out. I've had a couple instances where I don't see the kid in the portal or I don't see his release, and I just have to email their coach, which always gets a little awkward if the coach doesn't know he's transferring. So just make sure you get all your ducks in a row before you start reaching out to schools to transfer.
Yep. And nobody in here is at that point yet, but we will help you with that as well. That's a process that if you guys get to that point, we will help you with your transfer process if it comes to that. So, Coach, you mentioned getting yourself to a 40-man roster. How many kids are on your fall? How many show up just trying to play baseball, or how many guys do you talk to? How many guys you kind of show up and say, "Hey, Coach, I got my glove in my back. Can I play and try out?" What's your starting number look like before you get to that 40 typically?
Yeah, so I mean, what I try to do for our culture and for our system is everybody tries out every fall. So returners, recruits, walk-ons, everybody tries out, and I pick the best 40 or what I think would be the best 40. Usually in the fall, we'll carry 42 to 45, just because of any sort of injury or academic eligibility problems that come up at the end of the fall semester. But going into the spring, I think this past spring we carried 39.
Okay.
I won't over recruit. I mean, I recruit a little bit more than I lost. I lost 9 seniors. I'm bringing in 16. But that's also kind of just the nature of the beast of getting ready to make sure you replace the guys you need to replace, making sure you're always bettering your program. So, I'm not a big believer in myself, at least, of bringing in 75, 80 guys total in the fall and cutting it down. Or, there are some schools out there that part of the deal is they carry a 45, 55, 65 man roster. They have JV or they have a freshman team, but I don't have those resources. That's not our plan. My plan is to bring in kids that are going to come in, go to class, get good grades, play good ball, get better, and then graduate and love everything about their time at Norwich.
Yep. Finding the right fit, and you also don't have that pressure from your admissions either to go, "Hey, Coach, we need you to bring in 60 guys." They probably have said, "Hey, find the guys you want, make it happen." So that will be a different philosophy of different programs too, and what they hear from above too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, Coach, question came in here.
Yeah.
How do you personally use NCSA? Or just we'll use NCSA, but recruiting services, things like that. Specifically, we're obviously here at NCSA tonight. How do you use this? Do you get in and search for guys in here? Do you interact with guys? How do you use the information that's provided through sources like NCSA?
Yeah, so usually, really the only way I kind of start using it is if I get a link to a profile. That's usually kind of the first reason I go in there. I think sometimes, and not just obviously NCSA, but all of kind of those recruiting platforms and even, Twitter or X and Instagram, I fully support those businesses and companies trying to help the players in the best that they can. Sometimes it just gets a little awkward when the kid's like, "Hey, Coach Whaley," and knows nothing about the school, and it's just do a little bit of research before you email me. But I'm not usually in there scouring as much. A couple of the sites have added a transfer portion that kind of helps rather than the NCAA's transfer portal page is horrendous. It's terrible to use. It's not user friendly at all. So that aspect I might use a little bit, but in all honesty, I can appreciate more of the individual reach out of, hey, here's why I like your school and here's
Mm,
my profile. Do you mind taking a look? Versus like, hey, here's who I am, here's what I do, take a look, tell me what you think. It's
yep,
like
yep,
I get 10 to 12 of those a day, and it's like I don't have enough time to tell you what I think of you.
yep, yep,
My 2026 board is up to about 80 or 100 kids already, so it's
yep.
like I don't have enough time to do the scouting on a video myself. I need a little bit of meat and potatoes there in that email
Yeah.
before I really feel it. So yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. All right. How about like international students? Do you guys, again, being a, maybe, military academy, like, do
Yeah.
you guys bring in international students? Are you able to, and in general, like any advice, you guys are right on the border too, right? So any advice
Yeah.
for like kids who are trying to be recruited, internationally?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, like take a really good look at what the school does with either Canadian or
Yeah.
anybody Southern that's trying to
Yep.
come up. Just really take a look at how they handle any sort of student visas, the application process, the language tests, and then
Hmm.
also what does that financial aid process look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ours is pretty much the same financial aid wise in terms of merit scholarship and that sort of stuff, but it's not necessarily federal aid. That it's
Right.
just a little bit different. So really do your due diligence on the financial part. At our school, men's and women's hockey are two of the biggest programs,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, competing for national championships year in and year out. So they deal with a lot of the Canadians coming to
Yep.
play, and they a lot of those kids kind of soon realize the financial investment they're making and kind of the difference. So just do your due diligence. I wouldn't say that there's a difference in how you're going about being recruited.
Yep.
I just think it's what information is maybe a little bit more of a priority for you as you go through the process than somebody say from Vermont looking at Norwich versus somebody who's in Montreal looking at Norwich. Just the priorities of the information just might be a little different.
And as you said, some colleges might quite honestly be set up better to handle international students. Like, you guys are right near the border. You mentioned you've got a lot of international kids coming in for some
Yeah.
other sports. So your admissions department handles it.
Oh
Some
yeah.
schools, they might be, elsewhere. And it's just like, we don't have a lot of international students. So when they hear from one, what do we do with this
Yeah.
one kind of thing? And so you also have to know, do that research on, is that baseball program recruiting international guys? Like, do some
Yeah.
of that research as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that one we have international counselor specifically
Yeah. Yep.
in our
Yeah.
admissions office,
Yep.
who works specifically with all the documentation, all of the things that you need to make sure you can come over, everything gets checked off. Obviously, being a military school, we do a lot of military swaps. So, like
Sure.
this fall, we had a bunch of Swiss military soldiers
Wow.
just playing. They were just practicing with us all fall. They were
Yeah.
in their mid 20s, but they wanted to see what American baseball was like, and they just came to practice. They didn't try out. They just swung bats and took ground balls and just had fun. And so, yeah, we get a lot more of the international students more on the military portion,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
sharing information and training and that sort of thing that just kind of bleeds over into athletics.
I love it. Great
Yeah.
stuff. Well, Coach, I know we're right up about an hour here. I don't want to keep you too long. So I think we're good. Yeah. I mean, one more question might have come in. We'll
Okay.
maybe wrap it on that one, and then we'll kind of start to wrap some things up here. But all right. So let's see. This is longer questions. Let me kind of read through it here real quick. So they're getting information, about like different events, perfect game, different tournaments, and things like that. Just what's your advice for families on kind of how do we decipher perfect game stuff and our travel teams going to these Diamond Nation kind of tournaments or whatever it is? How do we kind of decipher and make sure that we're like spending our money wisely in recruiting? Like, just as a college coach who's recruiting families, what's useful for you to be able to evaluate them, and how do they best kind of get you stretch their funds?
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I'll kind of talk to the travel ball portion
Yeah.
first. So, I mean, those big events, they're great. But there is a portion of that there is a cost that they're trying to do a little bit of money there,
Hmm.
and I know I'm not going to call them, money grabbing tournaments because I do think you can get stuff out of them. But
Yeah.
just being cognizant that you know who's coming, you have an idea of what colleges will be there. You can do a little bit of pre-work and tell some coaches of schools you might be interested that I'm playing at this time, and this time and just making sure that the tournament or the company or perfect game for this instance is sharing who's going to be at those, and it's not just this big jamboree for 5 days and then that's the end, that they're actually out there trying to help. And I think the other portion too, I think I kind of touched on earlier, is the prospect camp portion. um, I think the first part about prospect camps that you should, or showcases you should worry about, is where are you as a player and and in terms of age. Um, I don't go to showcases or I don't go to tournaments wondering how good a 15-year-old is. I really don't. And that's not to say there aren't great 15-year-old baseball players out there, but from a Division III coach, like I'm more concerned about the 17, 18-year-olds just because that's my next class and I'm not looking 5 classes in advance.
Yep. Yep.
And when you get those invites, make sure that you think you're ready to compete with kids of that age. You know, if you're, hey, I haven't gone to the gym really, I need to put on some weight before I go show myself, then do that. And I would say try to make sure that you're going to prospect camps and showcases that um, are specific to your invite.
Yep.
You know, if you get an invite that it's kind of very generic, like, hey, Billy, come to our X college showcase in July and you'll get, you know, your 60-yard dash and your track man and your hit tracks and you'll get BP and well, then we'll play a game and you'll get 3 at bats. And you know, I think that that's a great setup. I would email them back and say, "Hey, coach, thank you for the invite. You know, are you interested in me?" Or, you know, just do a little bit of prodding. And if you get a response, then that's great. So just kind of make sure you're not one of 80, you know, or 800, you know, you're one of how I run it, you know, you're one of 20 and I know who you are and I've already known your parents and we've already had a phone call and it could be your third visit to campus already. So make this, enjoy this process as much as you can, but also make it as personal as you can. Cause you know, as much as I hate to say that your families, you're sending your son or daughter off for 4 years to a place by themselves for the first time. You just
Mhm.
want to make sure you're comfortable and personal, and you know that if there is something wrong, as much as the coach may not want to hear it, like you can call them and say, "Hey, coach, I'm a little worried about my son or daughter. Do you mind checking
Yep.
in?" And so just make sure it's personal and enjoy it. It's stressful, but it'll all be worth it in the end. I promise.
That's great advice. And I think that I should have thrown in there that question was about a 27 grad. So, you know, you kind of said like, hey, our rising juniors here, we're not that far away from when it's like, hey, you might even want to start hearing from them. So, you know,
Yeah.
if you're doing that kind of stuff this summer as a rising junior, you're probably putting yourself in a good position to get a little bit of a head start, you know, on
Oh
some of
yeah. If
the
you're a
other
20,
guys that aren't doing that stuff.
If you're a 27 right now, I would
Yeah.
say hold off on outreach. Use this summer and a little bit of the fall to just hammer the weight room, put a little
Mm,
size on, put a little strength on, and then make your first introduction as somebody
yeah.
who's 20 pounds heavier versus, you know, me kind of getting to know you as a 6'3", 150-pound kid. It's like, oh, hey, coach, now I'm 6'3", 175 pounds. And, you know, it's a little bit of a different introduction, and you can kind
Yeah.
of get probably through a couple more of the coach's doors
Yeah.
with a little bit more weight on you. So that
Yeah.
would be my
Yeah.
advice.
Awesome. And if your travel team has already signed up for some of those kind of events,
Yeah,
hey man, you're doing what your travel team's doing.
absolutely.
But I would say, coach, and I would also like to get your thought on it as well. Generally speaking, for most guys, they're going to probably get more benefit by doing stuff generally a little bit more closer to home, right? Like the most guys do not need to do the national circuit. You know, maybe if they're like MLB draft prospect type of guy, perhaps that's something that you might do. But for most guys, they're probably going to get more bang for their buck if maybe there's one like tournament that's 2 or 3 states away, but for the vast majority of their stuff, they're probably generally staying a little bit closer to home, right? Would you agree with
Oh
that?
yeah. Yeah, I mean 100%. The travel teams I coached the last 2 summers, the farthest we went was Connecticut, and
Yeah,
that's 3 hours, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
so I don't think that there's anything wrong with the national circuit. I just
yeah,
think sometimes with those national circuits and kind of the little bit of a bigger, you know, spectrum of who's going to be at
yeah,
these is if you guys are going to those games and you're getting a 3 game promise and you're going 0-3 and bouncing after 2 days, maybe just have, you know, somewhat of a self-awareness check of just like,
mm,
hey, should we really be trying to be a little bit more competitive closer to home and not really worrying about these big scale events and
yeah,
what that financial investment is? I mean, a lot of these conversations come down to money in and money out, and
yeah,
um, just making sure you're cognizant of is your child or your son or daughter truly being competitive in
yeah,
where they're at, and it's okay if they're not. Just make sure what you're doing for them is what's best for them
yeah.
and get the most out of it.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, we've talked about a ton. I know
Yeah.
you've given us a ton of great time here and a ton of
Yeah.
great insight. But any final thoughts? Any just kind of words of encouragement for these guys, these families in here on just kind of the recruiting process, just coming from a college coach, man? Any final thoughts for them?
I mean, honestly, there's just really two is just when you're reaching out, make sure you're talking kind of like a professional, you
Yeah,
know, smiley faces and emojis and ha-has and LOLs. they don't cut it. Sometimes once you get to that relationship with a coach, it's all right to joke around, but treat it as a little bit more of a professional and say, thank you, coach. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. I mean, that's the Norwich way anyway. Uh, just making sure that you're treating it as how you want them to see you, especially via text and email, because you're not talking in person. Just however you
Hmm.
come across in email is sometimes how people start to visualize you. As a person, and that's not
Yeah, yeah.
always fair, but that's just the truth of it. And I think for me, what I always try to tell the players that I'm recruiting is I'm a coach at heart. If you want me to look at video and help you out, I absolutely will. There's no strings attached to it, but get better and enjoy this process and enjoy the time and be where your feet are. Don't try to look too far in advance and rush everything. Really kind of sit back and be like, hey man, there's a lot of schools that are thinking about me. I'm kind of
Yeah.
liking this, and
Mhm.
now I get to kind of pick and think about it. So enjoy it, let it be stressful, and at the end, I promise it's worth it.
That's great advice. Well, Coach, this was phenomenal. I'd love to
Thank you.
get you back on sometime soon,
Yeah,
man. So we'll stay in touch. But I'll send
absolutely.
out. Hey guys, I've been recording tonight's session. I don't know if I said that at the beginning, but I will send out a recording to everybody here. So if there's anything that you feel like you missed or want to go back over, we'll get that out to you. But Coach, good luck this summer, and we'll
Thank you.
definitely be in touch, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Andy.
You got it. Have a great night. Everybody have a great night. Check out that survey link again. Knock that out, and everybody, we'll see y'all again soon. Everybody have a great night.
So, yeah.